So today I'm going to be showing you guys how to build a fully thrust vectoring fighter jet in the style of my Kitten Jet Mk.13 series. This one here is the Mk.13 M, and it's one of my most successful fighter jets. So we're going to be modeling our tutorial after this one exactly. Hopefully recreating it block for block, but it's going to be a little different, let's be honest. So let me show you some of the features it has before we start building. Like I said, it's fully thrust vectoring, so it's extremely maneuverable. We've got pitch, roll, and yaw thrusters, all articulated. We've got my standard weapons kit of 6 smart cannons and 2 rockets. We also have an air brake and a cruise control. And a sound effect and smoke, but the smoke's currently glitched out and the sound effect is just silliness, so I'm not sure we'll bother with that in the tutorial. But yeah, let's make ourselves a very nice little plane. Now giving you a quick preview of what we're gonna see here. We're going to have a piston glitch, so we'll have 2 separate engine bays, 2 sets of wings, and our weapons will be glitched into the nose cone here. So we're going to start with the Space Fighter cockpit, and grab a 2x4, so we can start building our engines. We're going to use all space thrusters for this build, just because they're the most power to size efficient, in my opinion. They're very small and they mount nicely. And we're going to have rows of 2, and we're going to have 7 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Connect up the sides here. Actually, no, that doesn't fit any better. Let's try this, and this. Okay, yeah, that fits perfectly. Except I don't want it to fit perfectly, and I want a little bit of overhang. That's right. And then we build this out to start forming our tail. And we can use some of these here. Actually, no. 4x8s there. I'm trying to remember how I built the last one. Anyways, that's the structure for now. We don't really need much more. I'll start with the tail next, because that'll be something I can talk about instead of just silently building. So we're going to grab our servos, our rotating servos, and we're going to have 2 sets of them. And they're going to be 4 blocks apart. That'll be a little bit important later. Finish out the tail here. Then we're going to grab large hinges. And I make sure to put my green direction facing forward. We're going to grab some wedges, some rounded 1x2s, and some rounded 1x2 corners. We're going to grab an engine, or a thruster I should say. And a simple tail fin. And then we're going to copy this little substructure onto each of the servos. Now when you do this, it will flip your hinges the wrong way around. So you gotta rotate them. Make sure that the green is facing forward again. Then while we have the flight tab open, we might as well grab our big elevator fins for our vertical stabilizers, and a pair of small elevator fins right in front of them. And now we'll get to the programming in just a moment, but I'm going to grab the wedges for right here that I know I'm going to place here because you'll see in a moment why. So now for our controls, you want pitch in the back because if you put it up here it won't be as dramatic of an effect. You always want pitch as far back or as far forward as you want, or as you can. And what we are going to do is we're going to have pitch in the front too, but we'll get to that in a moment. So that goes up and down, and this goes down and up. And then we're going to copy the servos and the simple tail fins, move them up 2 spaces there, so that we'll fill in the gap here. The blocks that won't connect to the simple tail fin. And then we have to reverse the directions on our front pitch. What are these called again? Canards, I think they are. This is the proper term for them. But yeah, there's our pitch controls. The roll controls are already in there the way that the servos are, so we don't have to mess with these ones at all. But now we're going to do our yaw. So we're going to select the large hinges on one side, and the left side gets L1 in the green input, and the right side gets R1 in the green input. And we're going to clear the red input on both of them. We don't need it moving in that direction at all, it'll probably break the build. Then we'll select all 4 of those hinges, bring the speed up to 2, the angle to 45, bring the steering help all the way down, and that's it. Then, in order to make our thrusters run as yaw thrusters the way that I like, you're going to grab 2 OR gates from our logic gate tabs, and put those in there, and that's why I put those wedges in, because I'm putting their little face downwards, and otherwise they wouldn't connect. And you have to have them connected in order to properly hook up their logic. So the one on the right side, we're going to connect just to the right jets, and give it an input of R1 on the green, and then L1 in the green for here, and the left side gets the left side here. Now we'll be going back to these logic gates a little bit later to make our air brake, but for now we're just going to move on, because we got to program in our aerodynamic yaw. So on these, we want the left just going left and the right just going right. So in our red input, we'll do L1 and clear the green. Then on the other one, we do R1 in the green and clear the red. Then select both of them, bring the speed up to 2. We're going to bring the angle down to 25, because otherwise when this swings out, it might interfere with the movement here. I don't know if they actually collide, but it's better safe than sorry. And then we're going to do the same thing on the little ones. L1 in the red for here. Clear the green input. On the right side, R1 in the green, clear the red input. And then we only have to bring the speed up for these ones, because they're much shorter and they aren't in a position to interfere with the control surfaces out here. Let's see, what next? I suppose next we should probably do the piston glitch. That's a big important part. So we're going to delete that block there to make room. And we're going to replace it with a little U shape of 1x2s. So one on each side, one on the bottom. Then grab the all-important pistons. And we're going to set our pistons in that little slot we just made. Go into the configurator. Clear both inputs. And bring the start position to 0. That's all you have to do to really set up the basis of your piston glitch. Then we're going to select the 2x4 and a pair of engines. And we're going to do 7 more rows. And then hook these up together here. We can use the 2x6 there to complete it. Let's just do a quick check that that syncs in correctly. We're periodically checking to make sure that the piston glitch stays functional, because sometimes when you add something back here, it can mess something up here in the way that the weld groups work. But this is going to be a relatively simple design, so I don't think we should encounter any problems really. So we're going to flesh out the rest of our wedges and nose cone here. Start taking away the blockiness of this plane a little bit. Four by one wedgies. And then what we're going to do is extend our piston glitch forward. So we're going to have our weapons mounted on here. And we can fill that in. And that'll also make an interesting shape for our nose cone, which looks kind of like a Phillips screwdriver tip in a little bit of a way. It's definitely not pointy, but it gives just a little bit more shape to it. And because this... oh, I didn't mean to undo that. Color picker. I'm just going to make that glass so that it doesn't interfere with our cockpit and we can still see everything in first person mode. But back to the wedges. I'm going to take a 4x1 and bring it back here. And then in this slot, we're going to use shield pieces to fill in the aerodynamics. And that's just because of the way that when this hinge moves outward, it would otherwise press this block into whatever you have here if you have anything much thicker than a shield piece there. But all we're doing is blocking the aerodynamics for the servo, because servos have very bad aerodynamics. And we don't have to put a shield piece in the back here, but I like to. Shape out the back a little bit. And while we've got the wedge tab open, we might as well finish our tail fins. Not that piece, these ones. There we go. And so now we'll slap our weapons in. At the very front, we're going to have our rockets. Then we're gonna have... Oh, we have to move this up a little bit, because if you see here how the this gun is aligned with this servo, when they go to sink in, it'll normally cause interference. I think it's only because it's on one side right now, but it's generally bad practice to piston glitch things into mechanical pieces like that. It's usually asking for trouble. So we're going to move this up just by one block, and then copy this over. And I want the 6 smart cannons, so we're going to put those in there, and that'll also conveniently block the aerodynamics for these blocks here. And just to double check, yep, that doesn't interfere with everything and shoots through. Then we'll set up the timings for the guns. On the, we don't need any delay on the first pair, of course. In the second pair, we're going to do a delay of 0.08. And on the third pair, we're going to do a delay of 0.16. And then we'll select our rockets and change them to L2, because otherwise you're going to be firing your rockets every time you yaw left. Next, we'll cover up our engine bays. So, just a little bit of that. Some wedges there. And in the front, what I'm taking to be doing by the cockpit is actually just a little bit of this. 2 sets of 2x1 wedges there. And why does that not look right? Oh, that's why it doesn't look right. We are 1 block too far back. There we go. It kind of frames the back of the cockpit while reducing the aerodynamics. Instead of having flat wedges. But we can also... Oh, not that block. We can put wedges down here, and we might have to, so I'm just gonna put them in there for now, just to show you what effect that'll do. We get these inverted wedges, where it's it just looks like that, where the 2 wedges are merged together. I think it looks really nice. Anyways, let's move on from that before I get distracted, because the last thing that we really need on here is wings. So I'm just going to be guesstimating that our wings go in the very back. And like I said before, we're going to have 2 sets of wings. And I'm thinking that'll be the right amount of lift. And oh, we didn't finish the bottom. Sorry to keep jumping back and forth, but this is the way that I build when I'm on my own too. So sorry about that. Hope it doesn't confuse anyone. But this is just filling in the bottom. Nothing too important. Let's just do a check that our piston glitch still sinks in, which it does. Because the next step is normally the one where if the piston glitch becomes rebellious is where it shows. So we're going to do the wings now. I wonder if you guys can hear my kitty. Nova, say hi. Aww. Okay, enough of that. Kitty time. She's going to be meowing anyways. So we're going to go to our wedges. and shape out the edge of our wings. And I want to make sure that our wings will be our wing panels will be connected redundantly, which will make more sense once I've actually got it built out, I suppose. And that'll interfere there, so we can't do that. One more there. Now the 2x1s. Okay, that'll fit without interfering with our control surface here. Now we just fill in the gaps. Some 4x1s. A 1x2. A 2x2. And then the wingtips here, we can just do a little bit of 3x1 action. Or, no, I'm gonna do 2x2s, or 1x2s with a block in the middle. I'm not sure if this is exactly how it looks on the Mk.13 M, and we might have to change them to adjust our aerodynamics in a minute. But this is just going to be the start of what we're working with. So copy that to all 4 of our wings. And what's next? Landing gear. I always use fixed landing gear, so it becomes an important part of the aerodynamic profile. I'm just going to have our tube slope there. Piece of straight suspension. And in the front I use skis and I use friction pads in the back. It's an old habit, but it works. And might as well adjust the springs before I copy them. Bring the dampening and the stiffness all the way up to 2. And bring one to the back. Make a pair of them and put the friction pads on. And now I believe we're ready for our first test flights. Yeah, our piston glitch still works. Our control surfaces are all right. And you know, I'm going to put the air brake in first, which I'll slap it in right in the back here, because that just uses the control surfaces we already have and an AND logic gate. So I'm just going to slip that in there. We're going to select both of the OR gates that run our yaw, connect them to that AND gate, which we're going to take the AND gate, bring its output to -1, and we're going to attach it to all of our maneuvering thrusters. So now when we yaw in both directions, it disables the yaw thrust and just spreads the tail out to act as our air brake. It's a little on the simple side, but it works pretty good in my opinion. Now I should not be flying into the mountain when I'm checking this, but no, it looks like we're naturally nosing down a decent bit. So we need to adjust our aerodynamics. And if we're nosing down, we can do things that'll make us nose up. Like, if we add more drag above our center of mass, it'll help us nose up. And one of the features that I want to add on that'll do just that is just a little bit of armor, a little bit of shield panels on top of our vertical stabilizers here. Because they tend to get shot off a lot, so any armor that I can put around them is good. And we'll just see what that does to the aerodynamics real quick. And get up to speed. And we're still nosing down a decent bit. And I have a suspicion as to why. These blocks that I put in here for aesthetics earlier are giving us a little bit of downforce, but I don't think they're enough to account for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these 4x1 wedges, because airflow, although air's not like exactly present in the video game, it does calculate the effect as if it is. So when air hits this, the equal and opposite reaction will push the nose upwards, even though the block hasn't moved the actual position it occupies. By changing its orientation, you change how the forces from drag will be applied to the plane. So now we'll check it. And with that change, now we're holding very level. I think it's still dropping just a whisker, but is well within my tolerances now. And of course, at slower speeds, it definitely wants to nose down, but that makes sense. It's only going to have one speed where it wants to stay perfectly level. And actually, it's still dropping a little bit, so let's adjust this a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out these 2x1 wedges and replace them with 4x1s. Now it's going to change the look of our piece here, but stand on the plane. But I don't mind it. I don't mind the look of that at all. Yeah, I think that's as good as I'm going to get it in this tutorial right now. So yeah, adjusting your wedges and changing the shape, the length, the orientation of them, it all affects your aerodynamics and how stable your plane will fly. It's something that you gotta play around with and just kind of get a feel for, and even once you get a feel for it, it's kind of just messing around and seeing what works. But next we're going to put on our cruise control. One of our last little features I'm going to add before the end. So we're going to grab an accumulator. We're going to set its controls to up and down. Up on the green, down on the red, unless you're weird and want to go the other way. And we're going to bring the minimum to 0, the maximum to 1, the scale is going to be 0.5, and we're not going to use steps. Then we're going to attach this to all of our thrusters. Maneuvering thrusters and all the ones in the body. Just a little bit of clicking here. Don't. And then to give us some indication of what our actual speed is locked in at. Granted, we'll be able to tell by our speedometer once we're up to speed, but before we're actually like getting up to speed or whatnot, it's just good to have an indicator. So we got the hue light panels. And now we can figure out what amount of thrust will get us to a certain speed. So light blue feels like just enough speed for us to take off and maintain flight, but not a whole lot more. And if we bring it to dark blue, that brings us up to a lot more thrust. And if we bring it all the way up to red, that's full thrust. I suppose you could use a number display too, but I like to use the hue light panels just because they're a little bit easier. You don't have to squint to read them in the middle of combat or anything. Not that I use the cruise control in the middle of combat very often, but you get what I mean. It's just easier for me to see. Anyway, I'm trying to think of what else I might be missing. Oh. That happens to me quite a bit. I drop down too fast and then bounce and flip. But oh, the last thing I suppose I'll show is how to do my little sound effect, the meow/hello. And that'll be down here in Decorations, Sound Makers tab. We grab the little parrot guys. And we get a pair of them. The first one we put to left on the D-pad, no delay, and we bring the pitch up to 8, and then we bring left on the D-pad there, a delay of 0.12, and pitch of 6. And then we copy this a couple times so that we have 4 pairs of them. So now we have our little sound effect, so that we can be a friendly fighter jet. And I believe, other than the paint job, that's everything. And I'm not going to bother painting it for the tutorial because, well, I expect you guys to paint it in your own style. Not necessarily in my pink and purple stuff. But yeah, that's how you build a Mk.13 Kitten Jet, specifically one that's trying to emulate the Mk.13 M, which was one of my most successful versions. And if you follow everything block for block, you'll get this very lovely plane. It's not the fastest, but it's extremely agile, and recovers very well from awkward maneuvers that it can pull off. So like, it can do all sorts of weird corkscrews and then just immediately flick back to being very level and stable. And it can do all the fun maneuvers like the Cobra, where you just kind of float in the air and balance, nose up. And I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. Well, I suppose I should say I hope you guys enjoy the plane that you built in this tutorial. But either way, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. Bye-bye now.
PlayStation